Hi there. This is our very unscripted conversation, kind of dedicated to Valentine's Day, but talking about relationships is Valentine's Day every day, right? And who do we have here today? We have Stephen Noerper, who is an unbelievable speaker. He is a really great talent in so many different ways, in so many different spheres. He is an international relations guru. I know that he wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but that's what I think. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Again, in a variety of areas, and he also happens to be my husband. So how lucky am I? How lucky is he? And we thought we would have this super unscripted conversation about relationships. Because Valentine's Day is really big on stuff, I think, and the expectations are very high on Valentine's Day, especially, I don't want to say, don't beat me up, guys, girls, especially on the women's front. We expect all these things to happen. And I think we don't stop and ask ourselves often enough of what it is that we actually need underneath all the stuff that we kind of expect, right? Which I don't. No expectations, no stuff. But here, Stephen and I will talk about, again, unscripted, about relationships and what is important. And why don't you just lead?
Great. Well, thanks, Olga. That's right. Thank you. And thanks for your warmth and introduction. And hi to all of your YelloBirdie Galentines. I think it's a great idea, and nothing better on this day, right, than to talk a bit about communications and expectations, as you just said, and do it in a fun way, but also in a way maybe that lends insight into some of our obstacles, our challenges, but really in the end, our opportunities. So thanks for having me on board. And I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. It's great to see you again.
Exactly. But the reason that, we didn't even, to all of you listening and watching, we didn't script any of this. We have really great conversations on the daily basis, sometimes not so great. But that makes the fabric of a relationship, right? But conversation, I feel, is absolutely essential, whether it comes to just connecting on the human level, where it's connected on an intellectual level, an emotional level. I think you and I, we have really great conversations. But something that you have been teaching me over the years, and you teach me every day, even 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes back from now, is how different we are, men and women, and how we see the world in a very different fashion, and how misunderstandings happen all the time, but sometimes because we as women come from one set of values or emotions or backgrounds, but it's just the way we're wired, and you men come from a different set of backgrounds and wires and everything else. So maybe just open it up here and say, just what's your take on men and women and how we see the world?
Well, worldview can be a universal thing, right? And I think the importance of what you do with YelloBirdie and your initiative is you empower the individual. And so it's that individual knowing herself that makes for better communication. And I dare say for men as well. And so the ability there, right, by getting to know oneself, by empowering oneself, is then you're able to go forward. Because we can't have a peace, love, communications in our community, not in our nation, which is sorely divided at the moment, not in our world, where we're open and rife with conflict right now and instability and a lot of questions in 2024. It all begins where? It begins with you, the individual. So that fundamental part of communications, knowing sort of where it is in its origin, and knowing that it builds the ability of all of us to communicate further on and in other strata, I think is really important. Where the obstacles come between men and women, to get to the heart of your question, One is a little bit different way of thinking. I mean, women wonderfully see the world more holistically. They're healers. They're life bringers in whatever context you want to define that. But they are the gestation of so much that is good in motherhood in a very general sense. Whether you mean that literally in terms of children, or whether you mean that in terms of creation or ideas or inspiration. Men are linear thinkers, and therein comes the obstacle, because I've had so many conversations, not only with yourself and other women over the years, about their frustrations with men, and the essential frustration, right, is guys don't get it. And why don't guys get it? Well, because guys think simply, and it's so hard to explain to women that where you see things in their layers, in their complexities, in their emotions, in their meanings, which are beautiful things, men basically they see things in terms of a linearity and in terms of some very simple priorities, whether that's food, whether that's sex or passion. They're moved, right? They're moved by their desire, and they're moved by their hunger for food, and their stance that way. And I know that sounds simplistic, and sure, I'll buy into the idea of, yes, men are complex beings. That's fine, but it has to do with what it boils down to. So the intersection, right, and the area that we can build on is. Men need to do a whole lot better job in terms of listening to, appreciating, and understanding the complexity of the women in their lives. But women too, right? They owe it to themselves to kind of come out batting, right? It's a woman's confidence. It's her ability to believe in herself. And in a society that has unfortunately been too patriarchal for centuries, if not millennia, maybe in 2024 we're starting to get somewhere, right? With the acceptance of not only women and their priorities. But also across the spectrum of gender and identity and preferences and acceptance, right? We seem to be getting to a new plateau. And an important part of that is for women to take pride in themselves and their accomplishment, and to know what they want. And I know that's a hard thing for any of us, men or women alike, to say, this is what I want. But I think if a woman more clearly defines that, her desires, her objectives, and does that with pride in her beauty, and beauty isn't a physical thing, not just a physical thing, and often not a physical thing, right? The beauty is what's from within, and the ability to project that, right? You and I were talking last night, and we said, a woman at 78, at 48, at 28, at 18, at 68, can be just as impressive, right? It's how she carries herself, how she projects herself, the confidence she feels in herself that attracts men, and that leads to success in relationships, and more importantly leads to self-success, because it really does all begin with self-love. And that's the area society has done less with, right, is encouraging women to love themselves, to take confidence in themselves, to accept their beauty, and their beauty, as flawed as it may be, whatever limitations, right, that we all have, and we do all have flaws, but to take that, to wrap our hands around that, and to celebrate the good parts and to project that. That's
So
when I think you make the
how do
connection
you
with
answer?
men, or with women.
So I am lucky, so lucky to have a supportive partner like yourself. But so many women are not this lucky. So my question is, how do you? What I specialize on is self-esteem and confidence building in women. But it's not everybody can afford my services, but also not everybody knows where to start. So, your advice from the male perspective for a woman who does not have a supportive partner, or who does not have a partner, or who's seeking that confidence, who's seeking to. There are a lot of women out there, what you mentioned before, in terms of physical beauty. There are a lot of absolutely beautiful women physically who have real confidence issues and real self-esteem issues. So where would you recommend for them to start?
Yeah, well, again, I think beauty is from within, and so physical beauty can be an opportunity or a limiting thing, but it's the evolution of that, the intellectual, the spiritual, the sexual, the holistic. essence that women project, which are beautiful. Look, it's has to do with something you've already mentioned, which is expectation. And so, as a guy, sometimes I have seen women and men, but women in particular, upset expectations, and sometimes those expectations have been reinforced within their families, but by mothers, sisters, or other relatives. Sometimes among their girlfriends, right? And women struggle to prioritize, to know what they uh, want in a man, what they feel is right in a man, and their frustration often comes from an expectation not being met. And that's no defense of men in this regard, because I think too many men are insensitive to where women want them to be, and men need to understand women's expectations, as odd as that may sound. But it's not part of the general male thought process. But men would do a whole lot better if they did, right? If they paused and they said, what is she looking for? What are my strengths? And men do like to, it's the ego, talk about their strengths, right? Their accomplishments, whether they consider that, physical, financial, in terms of adventure, activity, whatever their definitions may be, sometimes good, sometimes flawed. But what they need to take into account more are women's feelings. And I don't say that in a touchy feely way. They need to take into account the fact that women may prioritize differently than men, and maybe in a much more holistic way. Again, men with their linear thinking may be too focused on a limited set of goals. So, understanding your partner's goals and whatever type of relationship that is, woman, man, woman, woman, or otherwise, I think that women probably do well to explain that, to hold their ground, to not compromise. And let's face it, that is a slant of society. But to not compromise. That doesn't mean to be, arrogant, to be pushy, or to aggrandize. What it means is to um, be confident. Be confident in your ability. Be confident in your beauty. Be confident in your message. Be comfortable more with your own empowerment. Center yourself in the message, Olia, that you echo of enlightenment, right? And try to gain some insight and some mindfulness, some emotional maturity, and be fair then to put your expectation out, and don't feel bad about that. And that is the fair thing that your partner can do, right? Is to pick up and acknowledge, accept, and to encourage your expectations and your development forward. That's when it clicks. That's when it works.
Don't they say no expectations, no disappointments?
That's what they say. But it's
um,
not it's not just about lowering expectations, and that's what that quote implies, right? No expectations, no disappointment. It is great to come out in a zen, empty state and say, I'm here, right? And in essence, we all probably should do that, right? I'm here. Take me, accept me, or don't, right? But be honest in your feelings about that. However, I think expectation builds beyond that, and keeping those in check, keeping those fair, and accepting the limitations of your partner, that's important.
well,
And then
I
there's
think
less
it's
frustration.
what you're also talking about, and along all of those lines, it's ego versus self. It's knowing your sense of self rather than speaking or building your expectations from the ego perspective. So it's more from the self, what it is that you, as a woman or as a man, what it is that you truly want for yourself. And I think to get to the truly want side, you really need to focus and center and be quiet and allow yourself the space to reflect on those things. And when you build your sense of self, then as you said, you start blossom, you just open up, right? And all this beauty comes in. um One last thing before, so this Valentine's Day, it was different. I somehow arrived at self-care, so it's self-love, more than romantic love. Although I feel you and I, we have both. But I think working on self love is extremely important. It's something that maybe we as women, but also we as humans, start paying a little more attention to in 2024. What would be your advice for Valentine's Day in terms of self love?
Well, quite simply, right? To love yourself. You can't love your partner, and you can't have your partner love you if you don't have that basic essence, right? And to love the gifts that you have, and to not see the limitations, right? To look at that glass half full. To go ahead and look around you at the beauty, and you and I talk about this daily. The beauty of what nature provides, what the elements bring you, right? And that is liberating, right? To look at the opportunities in your life, the opportunities to serve not only yourself and your partner, but your community and those around you, right? And that builds what? It builds all good things, all good energy. And Oli, I know you're very big on the energy aspect. And I think that's really the key because, look, society puts up lots of blocks, especially for women, and they're raised with all sorts of expectations, many of which are artificial, right? You pass a billboard or fish through a magazine and see adverts, and what do you see? You see a lot of stated expectation about what? About beauty, about wealth, about materialism. And the answer, I think we all know, you're on the line if you know this, right, is the deep down, the liberations from within you, right? So it's Valentine's Day, but it's also the day when I think there's the opening in North America of the Bob Marley movie One Love, right? So one love, right? What's one love mean? And he says and sings, as the prophet that he was, about one love, right? One love that we all share. And that love may be a love of passion. It may be amorous. It may be a love for others of agape. He encourages us to think about the disequilibrium in our society, the injustices in our society, and to bring love that way through what? Through healing, through fulfillment, through equity, through distribution, right? Through ending poverty and injustice. And where's he all begin it with? One love, right? And patience, right? And century, right? Don't worry about a thing, right? Because that's in essence what brings us back. And that's a great Valentine's Day message, right? Don't worry about a thing. Believe in yourself, foster your energy, and that makes you a better person. It's so much easier to accept your partner and for your partner to accept and encourage and grow you forward, which is what anyone should expect from a relationship.
Awesome. And this was Stephen Noerper, speaker, a huge motivator for me. That may not even be the word, but and a brilliant mind and a really good human and a sexy beast. I just said it on the record.
Well,
And
back at you times 10, Olius. So you've got it all, and you've got it going. And good
so
luck on all this. And let's
happy
continue chatting.
Valentine's Day to all. If you're watching on Valentine's Day, if you're watching later, keep watching all of those beautiful wisdom messages that coming at you. And hope you love yourself this Valentine's Day and forward. With any questions, any concerns, any ideas, please reach out. YelloBirdie, yellow like jello, YelloBirdie.com, or on Instagram. DM me and I'm there for you. Thank you for joining and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.